when I call your name. Every fear is banished from here. When you call my name, I'll come running, running to you. And you say, come to me. Spread your wings, catch the wind, he's carrying you.
Shalom and welcome to this month's Jerusalem Dispatch ICEJ UK that brings you a closer connection to Israel and the Jewish people through the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy UK. And in this programme we'll be looking at some of the threats and challenges facing Israel in 2023, but also marking International Holocaust Memorial Day. And in this programme, I'm joined by Len Grates, Director of Operations for ICEJ UK, and together with Pastor Jonathan Croft, London Regional Leader for ICEJ UK. So guys, warm welcome to the programme, and of course this is the first programme of the new year of 2023. Len, can you just give us a little bit of an update on some of the recent activities being done by the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, United Kingdom?
Yes, well, it's welcome to you, Simon, to the new year, and happy new year to our watchers. For 2023 may be a year of blessing, encouragement and being prosperous in his purposes. Well, we've just had an amazing year, the last year, Simon. We've seen God do amazing things. He's raised up people. He's introduced us to some key people. We've expanded our team. We've had our conferences. And we're really looking forward to this coming year because, you know, we feel as if we've stepped out in faith and seen things happen. And we're excited to see what the future holds.
Excellent. And Jonathan, warm welcome to the programme. Good to see you back on the programme. Happy New Year to you as well. What is your thoughts and reflections on the year that was 2022, facing Israel and of course the Middle East as well, which is never dull?
It's certainly never dull. Obviously, Abrahamic accords continued. Those relationships began to be cemented a little bit more with travel between the two parliamentarians. So that's very, very positive within the nation. It was great that we were able to have a Feast of Tabernacles again for the first time in 3 years. So again, being able to gather together in that land. So for me, 2022, I returned to Israel, which was fantastic. And so it was a most favourable year for ICEJ as well. To be able to have that conference again was very, very important to us. But again, there's still political challenges within the UN. America is still not looking favourably towards that relationship. So there's a number of things that we still need as Christians to be praying for.
No, absolutely. So let's just remind ourselves not only of the history, but of the overview of the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
In 1980, the Israeli parliament passed a law declaring a united Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the State of Israel. Threatened by the Arab League with an oil embargo, national embassies in Jerusalem closed their doors. That same year, Christians from around the world gathered in Jerusalem to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Sensing the isolation of the Israeli people, the participants and leaders of this gathering decided to establish the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem.
The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is since more than 30 years right here in Jerusalem to connect the global church with the nation of Israel. For many Jewish people throughout the centuries, the only face of Christianity, what they experienced, was the ugly face of anti-Semitism, of Christians persecuting the Jewish people wherever they found them. As Christian Embassy, we are here in Israel to show a new face of the church, a new face of Jesus Christ to the Jewish people.
The mission of the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is fourfold: to educate the global church about Israel through events, television programs, and print publications, to promote Christian celebration in Israel and around the world through the annual Feast of Tabernacles celebration, to mobilize the worldwide body of Christ in prayer for Israel, influencing global leaders and ICEJ representatives in over 80 nations, and to show compassion to the people of Israel through social projects that are changing lives in every sector of Israeli society. To learn more about the ICEJ and how you can partner with us, visit icej.org.
And that was a great overview of the ministry that brings you a deeper connection to Israel and the Jewish people through the pro-Israel Christian ministry that is the International Christian Embassy at Jerusalem, UK. Len, what would you say were some of the highlights for ICEJ UK in 2022 here in the United Kingdom, but also your headquarters in Jerusalem?
Well, one of the most exciting things for us here in the UK is to see the expansion of our team. We now have team members over the whole of the UK, from Scotland. We're missing out on Wales, so we're praying for somebody for Wales. But right across the UK, we've seen people who are superly qualified and super people to take on various roles in their various locations. And so, it's been exciting to see that, and it's a great joy to work with brothers and sisters who have a passion and the same heart, and where God has knitted us together. And for me, it's been a real privilege to get to know them. But also, we've also stepped out this year and had regional conferences in new places, in Lincoln, in the Midlands, and we unfortunately had to cancel the one in Scotland due to various problems that we couldn't address. But we are hoping to have our first Scottish conference in this coming year. And so to see the expansion of the work and to see people coming and joining us, and we've seen amazing provision from the Lord to help address some of these great challenges that Israel faces. We've been able to send out thousands of pounds from generous givers like you who have given, and we've been able to impact the folk in Israel through the generosity of God's people. So it's been a really, really positive year.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, I mean, you're very privileged. You went to Israel. You were part of the Feast of Tabernacles, so that has got to be one of your big personal highlights, hasn't it, for ICEJ UK, to be part of the British contingent that went to Israel to attend the Feast of Tabernacles and that wonderful march through Jerusalem waving the Union Jack.
Absolutely, and I've got some photographs of myself with the flag. That Union flag, and it was such a privilege and humbling, actually, a real humbling experience to certainly be going on the march with thousands of people marching, but also thousands of people watching, and to see and hear Jewish boys, girls of all ages just saying thank you for supporting us, thank you for standing with Israel, and some people even were weeping with their thanks for us as Christians marching in Jerusalem. And it was such a highlight, and it will be a memory that I will be taking for many years to come, and hopefully we'll be able to join future marches. So yeah, most definitely was a highlight in that.
And Len, what would you say was the highlight for you then personally through all the activities that ICEJ UK have been involved in 2022?
Well, as well as these regional conferences and meeting some amazing people like Salim Salash, an Arab pastor who came and spoke about God's purposes for Israel. It's quite an exceptional thing to happen. For me personally, one of the highlights was actually going to Jerusalem for the International Directors Conference in May. We had 4 days together, and there were 70 of us there from around the nations, and another 100 that were joining us online. And what so impresses and impacts me is the fact that we're part of this huge family, worldwide family. I've known some of these leaders for a number of years now, and to see them again and to hear what God is doing in their different nations, from Fiji right across to Brazil, to North America, to India, you name the country, and there's probably an ICEJ rep there doing something for God's purposes. And so I really found that so encouraging, that we're not alone in this. We're part of a huge movement of God in these last days that are reaching out out to Israel and impacting Israel. And it's the Christians of the world that are impacting Israel. It's not just a little ministry here and a little ministry here there. It's the whole family of God. And to see that increase and develop, it was very, very humbling and amazingly encouraging.
Amazing, that's excellent. So let's have a look at one of the key highlights of the Feast of Tabernacles for 2022, and this is the Jerusalem March. That was one of the key highlights of 2022. Now that we're in 2023, we have to look at the threats, the challenges and the opportunities facing Israel this year. I've just said it, haven't I? Your question. So Jonathan, in your own opinion, what do you see as the opportunities and the challenges and the threats facing Israel this year in 2023?
Iran is still certainly the prime concern in Israel, and I think for Christians worldwide looking at the scene over in the Middle East, Iran still is pursuing a nuclear threat to Israel. They continue to, in their conversation, deny the existence of Israel. So that is very much still a very, very major threat in 2023. There was another gentleman called Brigadier General Amit Sar, and he believes that there's going to be a greater threat from the West Bank as well in this coming year. He was saying that there was young people getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning because there's a lot of anger, not only against Israel, but against the PA, the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and other of those military organizations, and they're not being looked after, they're not being cared for. There's a lot of people within the West Bank who just have lost trust in the Palestinian Authority, and there's a lot of anger there, and he believes, Brigadier General believes that they're going to get a lot more younger people who are going to be militarized, and they believe that that's going to be a greater threat in 2023 within that sort of grouping of people, those young people who've got nothing, they lost everything, and they've got no hope. And so there's a lot of anger that he is detecting along with others regarding 2023. Well,
thank you for sharing that insight, which is so important, particularly as our viewers can be praying for this situation. Absolutely. And Len, I mean, I think 2023 is going to be a very different year politically for Israel, as we will see the return of Benjamin Netanyahu after 2 years. And for the first time in years, it looks like Israel will be able to have a strong and stable and secure government that could actually last the distance, could last the 4 years, which would be a miracle if that happens. But what is your assessment of the political situation that Israel faces in 2023?
Well, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is a very strong leader, and he's either loved or hated by the Israelis. And he's obviously had to make some huge compromises because of the coalition type of system they have in Israel. And some of the folk like Ari Derry has been given, and I just read today he's the the Deputy Prime Minister, and he has a very strong hold over the Ministry of Interior, so that affects believers in Israel, it affects the Messianic community in Israel, but also, the same threats that Benjamin Netanyahu had when he was Prime Minister still exist today, but they've increased, such as Iran. And the whole situation with Iran is going to have to be addressed. It's not. They are not stepping back. They are progressing with the development of nuclear weapons. And as Benjamin Netanyahu has said in the past, there's a red line, and they're very near, if not over that red line now. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, and we certainly need to be praying for him during this time. Of course, there are some very good positive things that he's got on his agenda. There's the enlargement of the Abrahamic Accords, and they've been making some amazing progress in that area, particularly with countries like Sudan, who are becoming so friendly, and there's cooperation between them now. And there's even talk of embassy moves there, So these are all interesting things. And the softening of ties with Saudi Arabia, who would have dreamt of that just a few years ago? Absolutely. And of course, there's the other side, that Israel is now a very powerful economic nation. They've just, in the last few weeks, discovered oil on land in Israel. And they're saying there could be as much as 200 years worth of oil. Now, I know that's not very good in this climate mad world, but nevertheless, it's going to be a great benefit to them, which is including what's happening in the Mediterranean Sea, in Israel's water borders there, with the gas and oil that they've discovered there. So they're going to become a very strong economic power. They call themselves a startup nation. I think we're actually getting beyond startup now. They're becoming more established and expanding. So he's got some amazing challenges, but he's going to have a great resources to invest in the nation as well.
Excellent. That's great. And also, what do you think if we expand a bit more on the strategic threats that Israel's facing, Jonathan? I mean, we've mentioned the Iranian nuclear threat. There's also that potential tinderbox that could go off in Lebanon, with Hezbollah having somewhere in the region of 160 to 180,000 rockets and missiles targeted Israel. We know that the Iranian forces and proxies in Syria, right on Israel's border in the Golan Heights. Of course, the situation in Gaza can flare up any time, and now you mentioned there could be a hotbed of violence in Judea and Samaria under the Palestinian Authority. And of course, there is that ongoing strategic relationship with the Biden administration in the White House, which is a difficult one for Israel, and it will be with Benjamin Netanyahu. So what do you think, how our viewers should be praying for Israel's protection, and also for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
A real interesting question. I mean, with Netanyahu, it's going to be a really interesting time, and we really need to be praying God's favour upon him, because, as Len is saying, that there's quite a lot of real right-wing parties that are in the coalition. And when you read what they're looking for, reneging on the grandparent rule, for those who want to make Aliyah, and other things that are being talked about at this moment in time, we really need to pray for a real wisdom for him, but where he doesn't go across his own lines, for the sake of Israel. Yeah. So that it encompasses both Jew and Arab, because that's important as well, because again, the Bible tells them that they have to look after the people in their borders. So it's very, very important within that sense. And also, obviously UN is not favourable towards Israel, no matter what they do. However much evidence, they just ignore it. And so we just really need to continue to pray for them on the world stage, that the truth will be seen and it won't be corrupted by the Western media, and actually media around the world. Because I think the media have an agenda too, and we just need to ensure that truth continues to be maintained. Absolutely. And spoken out loudly.
Excellent. And Len, we already mentioned some of the kind of major activities that ICEJ UK has been involved in 2022 regarding the wonderful speaking engagements, Rosh Kodesh, the monthly prayer meeting, this program as well, and it's a privilege to be part of that. But what is the vision for ICEJ for 2023?
I think, at the beginning of 2022, we decided that we were going to step out and see the work expand and not be afraid to point out to the church their responsibility to support and pray for Israel. And we're going to be doing that more of the same, and hopefully turning up the heat a little bit and being a little bit more proactive. We've already planned a number of conferences this year, regional conferences I've mentioned before. They were very successful, and we want to be doing those again in some new locations and some of the same locations. But also, our mandate has always been to comfort the people of Israel. So everything we can do to get behind that one mandate is part of what we're going to be focusing on. Our energies will be to raise finances, raise prayer support. We have a monthly prayer initiative called Rosh Kodesh, which anyone is welcome to come and join us. If you want to pray for Israel, come and join us every month. It's actually a week's non-stop or 10 days non-stop prayer, and we just take one part of that, again, being part of the nations in praying for Israel. So we want to comfort God's people, and we need the practical resources to do that.
Excellent. And we're on to the kind of second part of the programme now. So really looking also what is big in the month of January is also the International Holocaust Memorial Day that will take place this year on Friday the 27th of January, which will mark the 78th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the Nazi death camp, by the Red Army. How vital is it that we continue to mark this occasion? And in your opinion, Jonathan, why is it still so important and so relevant?
It's incredibly relevant. Again, I've got some statistics from a conference called Claim Conference. It's a year ago now. But I think it's just so important, and this is about Britain. They had 2,000 people were surveyed, and 89% of the respondents have definitely heard of the Holocaust. But out of those 89%, 52% did not know 6 million people were killed. And only a quarter of them believed, 22% believed less than 2 million people were killed in the Holocaust. This is incredible, because this is why we need Holocaust Memorial Day, because we need to understand. It says nearly 1/3 of UK respondents, 32%, were unable to name a single one of the 40,000 camps or ghettos in World War II. And a majority of UK respondents, 56%, believe something like the Holocaust could happen again. And there's a couple of other statistics. There's one which is actually quite important as well. Out of those 2,000 people, a high percentage says that we need to educate our young people. That historically we need to be talking in schools, making sure that the Holocaust is not forgotten. And having statistics like that, where people, even in this country, out of that percentage, people believe that it was only less than 2 million. They don't know the facts. They don't know about the kindergarten, the train, the 10,000 Jews that came across. They have very, very little understanding, very little knowledge about the Holocaust Memorial situation. And so it's so important that we continue to re-educate people in our nation to what happened in the Holocaust in Germany and the surrounding areas. So just even statistics like that are horrifying, that in our nation today, people do not recognize the Holocaust as we know it. And so education, I think a famous politician used to say.
Blow, yes.
So it's important.
No, well, thanks for bringing that to attention, because it is so important that we can't afford to be apathetic.
Absolutely.
Or indifferent. And Len, when we look back at the horrific events of over 80 years ago, where the Nazis carried out the final solution against the Jewish people, which was the biggest crime of genocide in world history. Again, we mentioned those those numbers. We don't probably know the exact figure. It could even be more than 6 million Jewish people that were murdered on industrial scale. But can you say why it's so important that Christians, together with the Jewish community, mark International Holocaust Memorial Day?
Well, I think what Jonathan's just mentioned, I didn't know those figures, and it's remarkable that that we've lost so much ground, and we need to try and address that. And maybe that's something that we, as an organisation, need to up our stakes on and get more involved in. But you know, the Bible speaks a lot about remembering. You know, the whole thing about Passover is it's remembering God's faithfulness. And even, you know, we as believers, when we have the Lord's Supper, Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. And remembering is a very important part for us as believers. And remembering the Holocaust is something that we must really put in our diaries to do so. It's not something that, you know, a strange historical event that happened thousands of years ago. It happened in some people's lifetime. It was just before my lifetime. That 6 million plus, you know, a million children, you know, under the age of 15 were slaughtered, innocent children. And so, you know, we need to raise our game a bit to bring this to the knowledge of the church and the people in our country, to see that this, because it will happen again. Somebody once said, if we forget history, we're bound to repeat it. And so we've got to make sure that we keep this central in our annual remembrance events, because it's still out there. It's still happening. And those facts, Jonathan, are just horrifying.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan, thank you for sharing those statistics. But aren't we also in great danger of losing the impact of the Holocaust, particularly International Holocaust Memorial Day, as those Holocaust survivors are getting older and older? They're not going to be around for much longer, and therefore there will no longer be any first-hand accounts of what happened, and that puts us in a very, very dangerous position. How important is it that we educate the next generation regarding the horrors that took place in the Holocaust, and continue as Christians to warn of the dangers of what happens when anti-Semitism gets out of control?
Yeah, it's so important to get this information to as many schools as possible. And I know that Holocaust survivors, even to this day, in their 80s, even in the 90s, are going into schools, and they are incredibly well received 99% of the time. And people and young children and teenagers are thrilled to hear the first-hand accounts. I know that those people who are concerned, they are recording a lot of the testimonies now, so that there is some sort of remembrance of the Holocaust from first hand. So lots and lots of recordings are taking place, interviews are taking place, so that we have a whole library of information that we can pass out to schools in the future, because it is something that we have to educate our young people about this.
Absolutely. And Len, it's extraordinary, isn't it, that we have presidents, we have prime ministers, we have ministers of state, we have members of parliament, we have church leaders and Jewish leaders mark International Holocaust Memorial Day. We have the mainstream media showing films, documentaries, interviews with Holocaust survivors. We see interviews with Holocaust survivors in our kind of national newspapers. And yet what we're seeing at the same time is a massive rise of Jew hatred around the world, and it's gone mainstream. If we just show one example of the music artist Kanye West with his social media posts with millions of followers, shows that there is a discrepancy between Holocaust education and marking this, and a huge rise of Jew hatred that we're seeing in Britain, in Europe, and in the United States and around the world.
It's a very sad fact that anti-Semitism is rising, particularly in the Western world and in the USA, North America. I was watching some video recently of one guy just being a total Holocaust survivor, Holocaust denier, and and really this hatred was pouring out of him, and I was shocked. But you know, the problem is, Simon, that you know, we as believers, we believe the Bible, and we believe in a spiritual dimension to life. And this spiritual dimension is most obvious when it comes to hatred of the Jews, because it doesn't go away with education. It doesn't go away with you know, Western development. There is a spiritual force operating, and has been operating for thousands of years. You know, the same thing that happened in the 1930s and 40s, you know, it was actually happening back in the Bible times when we read about the story of Haman and you know, just an Esther, and that whole story of God saving his people. This hatred of the Jewish people has been there all through the last thousands of years. It was in the early church. The early church, if you read church history, it's something that, well, I'm quite ashamed of. So it's the same thing that's happening today, that we're seeing a rise. And of course, we as believers, we need to speak up and pray up. We need to get before the Lord and pray for God's mercy upon the Jewish people, and for the church to come awake, to awaken to this whole responsibility that we have to pray for Israel and the Jewish people, and to stand with them.
Absolutely. Just want to add a little bit more to that. I mean, if we take, for example, the story of Moses, I think in Exodus 1, it talks about how a new Pharaoh came to the throne, and he didn't remember Joseph and what Joseph had done, which led him to mistrust the Jewish people that were living in the land of Egypt, and then enslaved them and showed them a kind of bondage, and God raised up Moses to liberate the Jewish people into the homeland. So I think that's also a biblical case for understanding of what happens when the consequences of forgetting history. ICEJ put together this excellent 5-minute interview with the Holocaust survivors, so that we know of the true horrors that took place and the first-hand accounts. Let's have a look.
In 1939, a few days after the war broke out, the Germans were in already. And they came to the backyard where I used to live, and with the boots, you know, and we got scared already. It was a deadline till 9 o'clock at evening. The Jews were allowed to go out. After 9, who will go out will be shot. My name is Leokadia Szlag. I am 87 years old. I was born in Poland, in Częstochowa. In 1939, when the war broke out, I lived still with my parents. 1942, I was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau. First, they took my mother. There was a stadion, through all the Jews on the stadion, in the select. The weakest go left, the stronger or right. You know, and my mother was the first that they took her, and I don't know till today where she ended up. And when I was in Birkenau already, I was told that they took my father and my sister. She was older than me. She went voluntarily. And my brother, I was told in Birkenau from the men's were separated from the women's. So the man told me, a gentleman told me that my brother was in Gross Rosen, was also a concentration camp, and I don't know till today. I have no grave, no nothing.
Once a year, in the warm spring sunshine, life in Israel comes to a complete stop. For 1 minute, Israelis around the country stop to remember the tragic death of over 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. Yom Hashoah is Israel's national day for Holocaust remembrance.
And when the war finished, when I was liberated in Dachau, the 28th of April 1945, I was staying like a skeleton without family, without nobody. I didn't have a place where to go. When I was liberated, I didn't think, where is my parents? Where are my siblings? I said, I want to eat. I was hungry. And this is today, I can forgive myself that I didn't have in my mind my parents only food. And this is a very tragic. This is a tragedy. When I was in Montreal, I paid 4,000 Canadian dollars to be transferred to Israel in case I die, because I don't want to be buried in Canada. Because of my children, they are not millionaires, they were hardworking people, and I couldn't live to them to come every year to visit my grave, because it's 15 hours flight. So, and secondly, my heart lies here, because I was suffering for 63 months in concentration camps, that we have a country today. And the sentiments, you can take away the sentiments. 6 million Jews perished, but we have a country today. And sir, if we forget to speak from our past, we are doomed to repeat it.
Today, there are still thousands of Holocaust survivors who are in a sense forgotten and living below the poverty line in Israel. Help us to support these precious survivors while we still can.
And so important to get the testimonies of Holocaust survivors on record, so that when future generations ask what happened during the Holocaust, they'll have that first-hand accounts of what actually happened, which is imperative that we record as many videos as we can. So ICEJ UK have done a wonderful job there. Len, before we talk a little bit more about the Holocaust, I think we also need to recognise the dire situation facing the Jewish community, for example, in the Ukraine, when Russia decided to invade that nation in February of 2022. It took people by surprise. Not only did it trigger the biggest refugee crisis since the Second World War, but also triggered the largest wave of Jewish aliyah to Israel for a generation, from the Ukraine, from Belarus, and from Russia as well. Share with us the role that ICEJ UK has played in helping to rescue Ukrainian Jewish people.
Well, there's been a lot of money spent on sponsoring flights and sponsoring accommodation and living costs for quite a large number of Ukrainian Jewish refugees who have made or tried to move to Israel in the process of wanting to stay there permanently. But it's just been, again, just amazing to see the way God's people around the nations and here in the UK have raised money to help these dear people. And it's terrible what's happening in the Ukraine. But I've often thought maybe if it hadn't been for this crisis, these people would never have finished up in Israel. It says in the scriptures that one day there's going to be fishermen who's going to draw people home, but then he's going to send out the hunters. And that's not a nice situation to be in when you're hunted to get back into Israel. And I think that's what's a little bit what's happening today. And so we've been able to provide welcome packs, food, family assistance, helping kids with schooling, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, we're still in that process. That's an ongoing thing. I was just speaking to someone this morning from Israel who's got a guest house, and their guest house is full of refugees, and they they're looking for accommodation, they're looking for support to help get them established in the land. So the need is there, and we need we need God's people to help us to do what we can to help.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, do you want to comment on the bravery and the courage shown by ICEJ field operatives who have gone into war-torn Ukraine with the risk to their own life under kind of Russian shelling and Russian fire to rescue, I think, 50 Holocaust survivors in Ukraine and bring them to
amazing,
Israel?
isn't it?
Can you share and expand upon this? Because this is writing a new chapter, isn't it, in Jewish-Christian relations and showing Christian love to Israel and the Jewish people by doing this.
I mean, you know, I take my hat off to all of the ICEJ folks who have gone into the Ukraine. I have some friends who've gone in to that land, and they can hear the bombs going off in the distance. And so to put yourself into that arena for the sake of our Jewish brothers and sisters is incredible. And to be able to do that, to go in and get support, to bring them out transport-wise, and then to get them over to Israel is amazing. And obviously, you know, we need help. You know, ICEJ, we want to sponsor more and more of these things. And so therefore, you know, we need people's support to do that. But yeah, my hat. Thank you, Lord.
Amen. Absolutely incredible, isn't it? And Len, share with us the amazing work that the ICEJ UK is doing to help Israel by helping Holocaust survivors and particularly the Home for Holocaust Survivors, which I believe is in Haifa in the north of Israel.
Yeah, well, it was over 12 years ago that a very small charity in Haifa, which was a Jewish charity, came to the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem asking for some help and assistance in to look after Holocaust survivors. So we got drawn into this work, and today we own or rent a large number of houses in one particular area of Haifa and house over 70 Holocaust survivors. We pay their rent, we feed them, we look after them, we endeavor to care for them, we show love to them, we try to restore the years the locusts have eaten for them, we give them special events, we treat them like kings and princesses. And it's been an absolute joy. I've been there a couple of times to see the impact that this is having. You go in there, and the one thing that you're overwhelmed by is that they're smiling. And you think, how can these people be so full of joy and happiness, having been through what they've been through? And it's been an amazing privilege for us as an organisation to care for these Holocaust survivors. We also look after them in their homes too. We have a home visiting system. We provide food, we provide food packages and care, medical care, dental care. So we're trying to really spoil them in a most wonderful way. And it's a wonderful thing, testimony to the whole of Israel, because most politicians in Israel know about this, and they're saying, why is it the Christians are doing it and we're not? Mm-hmm. And so it's a great challenge to them, and they all want to come and visit it and have their pictures taken there. But it's a wonderful thing to say that Christians and people supporting the work of ICEJ, this is what you're doing. You're blessing Holocaust survivors.
Yeah, so if you want to support Holocaust survivors, then please support the ministry that is ICEJ UK. Jonathan, now one of the biggest challenges I think facing Holocaust survivors in Israel is that many of them, their partners have died, they're elderly, many come from the former Soviet Union, so their knowledge of Hebrew is not great. And one of the biggest challenges they find is loneliness and being alone. And of course, reflecting upon what Len has described, how important is it for Christians to show love to these survivors, to make their end days as love-filled as possible, and to again rewrite a new chapter in Jewish-Christian relations?
In 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about love. That we don't want to be just a loud gong. We don't want to just be talking about these things. We want to actually be doing stuff. And so for us in ICEJ, we want to be hands-on so that we're demonstrating love in action. And the book of James is all about that as well. So for me, it's a privilege to be part of ICEJ, where we're seeing love in action in Jerusalem and across the world. where we're reaching out in practical love in these situations.
So now we've got a very inspirational and moving video to show you. This one is called Remembering Yom Hashoah with Holocaust Survivors in the ICEJ Haifa home.
It's Holocaust Memorial Day today. It's a heavy day, it's a difficult day, and at 10 o'clock all of Israel stopped in order to remember the 6 million Jewish people that perished during the Holocaust. Here in Haifa we have a ceremony, and at the ceremony we have people from the government, members of Knesset, all kinds of dignitaries, but besides that also our young soldiers and policemen that come here to remember and to stand with these Holocaust survivors at this very difficult day. We would love to give you a little taste of what it is to remember.
התכנסנו כאן ברחבת יד לניצול בחיפה כדי לחזור ולשנן את המשפט לעולם לא נשכח, לעולם לא נסלח. אנו עומדים כאן במקום שבו הקים מייסד העמותה מר שמעון סבג את עמותת יד עזר לחבר, שהיא בית חם לניצולי שואה, ל100 ניצולי שואה, כ100 ניצולי שואה שמתגוררים כאן עם מיטב התנאים ומברכים על המקום.
התכנסנו שוב פה היום לזכר כל אלה שנשפו בשואה, ותודה לאל שנוכל לכבוד את זה הפעם ביחד, היום הקשה הזה. אני יודעת שאתם, ניצולי השואה היקרים, שאתם כבר הדליקו את הנרות שלכם, נרות זיכרון אתמול בערב, ושהיום הזה זה יום קשה, והאובדן והכאב העמוק, שזה לא רק היום, אבל זה כל הזמן איתכם. אני רוצה לחבק אתכם ולחזק אתכם. After the ceremony, we had a wonderful opportunity to sit with two of our survivors and with some of those beautiful soldiers and to ask them what this day actually means to them, what it means for them to remember and why it's important. למה בשבילך יום השואה חשוב?
בגלל שיש לנו מדינה, איפה נלך אנחנו? אנחנו צריכים לשמור על מעט שיש לנו, אנחנו לא הרבה, ועוד הולכים, ונהרגים חיילים, ותאונות דרכים, ואנשים מבוגרים, וכל פעם פחות, פחות, פחות. עכשיו, אם הצעירים לא יאמינו, אז הם ילכו בצד אחר, אז מה נשאר? כלום.
מתי אתם חושבים בעצם זה חשוב להיות פה היום ביום השואה? למה זה חשוב בשבילכם?
קודם כל, אני וזוהר, זוהר היא החיילת שלי. אנחנו פעם ראשונה נמצאות פה. אני חווה את יום השואה כבר 3 שנים בצבא, זוהר פעם ראשונה. ואני מרגישה שיש לי, נפלה בחלקי הזכות מאוד מאוד גדולה להגיע לפה היום. לא ידעתי על קיומו של המקום הזה, יש לציין. אני גרה בחיפה, בסביבה, ולא ידעתי שזה קיים. אז קודם כל, ברגע שאני יודעת, ואני שלחתי למשפחה שלי, והמשפחה שלי שלחה לחברים, אז קודם כל ככה כולנו, כל המעגל הזה הגדול שהוא רק מתעצם ומתעצם, יודע על המקום הזה ויכול להגיע לפה. בין אם זה להגיד שלום, ובין אם זה לשוחח, אפילו 5 דקות, זה מצווה, זה מצווה. כי פשוט אסור לנו לא לשכוח, תמיד לציין ותמיד להגיע לפה. להגיע לפה ולכל הארץ בכלל. כמו נעמי יש עוד, וצריך להנציח כל רגע ורגע בחיים האלה כשהם פה.
I so want to thank all of you out there for your wonderful help so that we can do the work that we do here in Haifa with Holocaust survivors. It's only because of you that we can do it. And I want to tell you, please remember what happened so that we can learn from the past and we can really build together, Jews and Christians, a much better future. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent report there by ICEJ. And it's imperative that for those remaining Holocaust survivors who are probably in their early 90s, if not older, we need to continue to show them that love and support, and so that they see a difference in Christians. And talking about this issue, Jonathan, can you just share with our viewers watching today's programme how they can get involved in ICEJ and how important it is that they support this wonderful Haifa home for Holocaust survivors, because this is so important, particularly as it's showing practical love to these survivors that endured horrors that no one could possibly comprehend what they went through.
First of all, I'd encourage people to go on our website and sign up for the information. And so that we will see that that when you sign up, you get information. And when you get that information, it means that you can genuinely get involved in where we are. Prayer is important, financial giving as well. And if you do go to Israel, why not go to the Haifa, the homes up there as well, and plan a visit there? Because when you get first-hand experience of these things, it does bring a major change in your situations.
Yeah, well said. And Len, we have to ask, how do the Israelis respond to the fact that there is a pro-Israel Christian ministry called ICEJ who are actually helping Holocaust survivors, not only helping them, but having a home and actually owning a home in Haifa to look after these very precious and special people?
I think, as you saw in that impressive video clip of Judith Seltz, who oversees the Holocaust home, how that many people from senior positions in society, including government, want to be part of what's happening. They want to go and support it. They want to be there. And it's really broken down so many barriers. It's unbelievable. There's been major articles in the media over the years saying things such as, why is it the Christians are doing this? Why aren't we doing it? We're provoking them and have provoked them to action. And so there are other initiatives being taking place, run by Jewish people, Israelis, caring for Holocaust survivors. But we were the first to join in with this small charity and taking it to much higher levels of care and being able to draw on the support of Christians all around the world.
Amazing. And Jonathan, sadly we're down to about 3 minutes left of the programme, which has gone extremely fast today. But for our viewers watching, isn't it imperative that Christians show a practical love to Israel and the Jewish people? And of course they can do that through the ministry that is ICEJ UK. So not only helping Holocaust survivors, but also protecting Israelis by building very expensive bomb shelters as well. Share with us how our viewers can get involved and showing a practical love with the ministry that is ICEJ UK.
Faith in action is so important, and like we've said before, prayer is so key. We know that we are in a spiritual battle concerning all things to do with Israel and in our own lives too. And so for me, prayer is important, but again, please, it's important that we sign up, get the information, because then you are then equipped to do so much more in a practical way.
And Len, it's going to be a special year, I believe, for ICEJ UK. That's the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, United Kingdom, in 2023. So how can our viewers really get involved, attend the conferences, sign up for the magazine and become a member, even go to Israel with the Feast of Tabernacles in 2023?
Well, we want to encourage you to sign up and get our newsletter. We want to encourage you to get involved with us. We can only do to the amount that people give. And I'm not ashamed to saying, listen, we want you to give financially. We can only bless the Holocaust survivors from Great Britain if the British Christians respond and show this love in action. Jonathan mentioned love in action, faith in action. It's great to pray for them, but we need to go beyond prayer and we need to reach out with real practical expressions of love. So sign up. We'll send you details of our conferences. We'll send you details of all that's happening. We're totally accountable to trustees for everything that we do. So please join us as we seek to support Israel, love Israel, and fulfill that mandate to comfort ye my people.
Amen. Brilliant way to end the programme, Len, so thank you. So Jonathan and Len, thank you so much for being my guests for the January edition of Jerusalem Dispatch, ICEJ UK, and want to wish our viewers a wonderful Happy New Year for 2023, and may it be a year of spiritual breakthrough for Christian Zionists, but also for Israel and the Jewish people. So I'll remind you with this excellent video that shows how each branch, each nation have representatives of ICJ are helping to stamp and fight against the rise of Jew hatred that led to the Holocaust over 80 years ago.
Catch the wind, he's carrying